There's a specific kind of silence that only comes with a blizzard. It's not just the absence of sound, it's the weight of it. The snow doesn't just fall, it buries. It insulates. It swallows the world whole until you feel like you're the only thing left. Most people see a storm and think of warmth, of fireplaces and hot cocoa. But for others, a blizzard is a shroud. It's a tactical advantage. It provides the perfect cover for things that shouldn't be out there. There's a moment during a whiteout where the horizon vanishes, where the sky and the ground merge into a single, blinding void, and the world becomes a vacuum. These are the moments when the weather isn't the most dangerous thing outside. These are the moments you realize you aren't as alone as you thought. Have you ever wondered why your ancestors told you to never answer a knock during a storm? Have you ever felt that sudden, sharp prickle on the back of your neck when the power goes out, telling you that the darkness in the corner of your room just moved? You should have listened to that feeling. Because in the heart of a storm, the things that knock aren't looking for shelter. They're looking for you. It was January 2017, in rural Ohio. An isolated farmhouse. The kind of place where, when the power goes out, the world simply stops existing. Imagine being 24 years old, alone, watching the horizon disappear behind a wall of grey and white. At 9:30 p.m., the lights died. The furnace went cold. The only thing left was the sound of sleet hitting the windows like gravel. Think about that sudden, heavy silence. In the country, it feels like you've been dropped into a grave. You sit there, the blue light of your phone the only thing keeping the room from swallowing you. Then, a notification buzzed. Motion detected at the back door. You tell yourself it's a deer. You tell yourself the wind pushed a branch past the sensor. But through a glitchy, low-battery camera feed, there was a dark shape. A silhouette that didn't move like an animal. A blob in the static that stood perfectly still. Then, the camera died. Think about the courage it takes to walk toward a door when you know something is on the other side. The witness approached the sliding glass door, breath hitching in the freezing air. The condensation was so thick they couldn't see out. They reached for the lock. It was secure. And then, the horror began. A pale hand pressed against the glass. It didn't knock. It didn't pound. It moved slowly, wiping away the frost at eye level. And there, through the cleared circle, was an eye. A human eye. Wide, unblinking, and manic. It wasn't looking for a way in. It was staring directly at the person inside. He had been waiting. He had been standing there in the killing cold, his face inches from the glass, just waiting for the person inside to come and look. The thud that followed was the sound of a man trying to break the world to get in. The witness hid in a windowless bathroom, listening to the crunch of boots on the front porch. The handle jiggled. Then the crash of the living room window. A voice rasped, sounding like decades of smoke and malice. "Come on out. I just want to get warm." He was inches away, his shadow flickering under the bathroom door, when the sirens finally cut through the whiteout. They caught him, a drifter named Travis, high on meth and fresh out of prison. But the part that lingers long after the arrest isn't the break-in. It's what the police found when they checked the tracks. Travis hadn't just arrived when the motion sensor went off. He had been standing on that deck, in the freezing dark, for over an hour. Just watching. Waiting for the moment the house went dark. He had been there the whole time you were sitting in the kitchen, thinking you were alone. But sometimes, the horror isn't a person. Sometimes, it's something that shouldn't be moving at all. In February 2023, in Minnesota, the kind of cold that turns your breath into needles had settled over the state. A food delivery driver, desperate for a $40 payout, took a risk on a midnight delivery. The house was a death trap, a 2-story colonial at the end of a 100-yard unplowed driveway. The delivery instructions were the first red flag: leave at front door. Do not knock. Do not look in the windows. It is the kind of instruction that makes your skin crawl because it implies that there is something inside worth hiding. Curiosity is a dangerous trait. The driver reached the porch and looked through the massive bay window. The house was gutted. No furniture. No life. Except for a single mannequin in a grey suit, standing dead center in the room. Faceless. Stiff. Watching nothing. The driver turned to leave, but the ice claimed them. They wiped out on the porch steps, slamming into the snow. It took 5 seconds to compose themselves after the fall. Just 5 seconds. But when they looked back at the window, the mannequin had moved. It wasn't in the center of the room anymore. It was pressed against the glass, looming over the porch, its plastic forehead touching the pane. It had covered 20 feet in total silence while the driver's back was turned. There were no tracks in the snow. No one was inside. The house had been vacant for a year. To this day, the driver doesn't know if someone was playing a sick game from the shadows, or if some things simply move when we aren't looking. The question isn't how it moved, but why it wanted to be so close to the glass when the driver fell. It wasn't watching the room. It was watching the struggle. Perhaps the most terrifying thing about a blizzard is how it can trap you with strangers. On Interstate 80 in Wyoming, a total whiteout had turned the highway into a graveyard of buried vehicles. A traveler sat in the silence, cycling the engine to save gas, shivering in a coat and gloves despite the heater. To the right was a rusted green sedan. Dark. Silent. Snow piled high on its roof. At 2:13 a.m., the door of that sedan opened. A man stepped out. Picture this. It is bone-chillingly cold. You are wearing a parka and you are still shaking. This man steps out wearing a faded graphic t-shirt and jeans. No coat. No hat. No gloves. He walks casually through the waist-deep snow in canvas sneakers, checking door handles. He doesn't huddle. He doesn't rush. He walks like he is strolling through a mall in the middle of July. When he reached the witness's window, he held up a piece of cardboard, a pizza box lid. On it, in thick black marker, were the words, "Let me in. I'm cold." But he wasn't shivering. His skin wasn't blue. He was smiling, a wide, unnatural grin that showed too many teeth. He tapped the glass, his eyes unblinking, that frozen smile never wavering. He pulled the handle. It clicked. The lock held. He didn't get angry. He just tilted his head like he was observing a fish in a tank, then walked back to his car. When the plows finally reached them the next morning, the police checked that green sedan. It was empty. No keys. No driver. No footprints leading away into the woods. The car had been stolen 3 days prior in Omaha. The man in the t-shirt, the man who didn't shiver, vanished into a storm that should have killed him in minutes. Think about the people you pass on the street every day. We assume they are like us. We assume they feel the heat, the pain, and the cold. But stories like these make you wonder if there are entities that simply wear our skin as a costume, waiting for a storm to provide the isolation they need to play their games. There are predators that don't need warmth. There are things that find the frozen, dead quiet of a blizzard to be the perfect environment to hunt. The storm always ends. The snow melts. The power comes back on. But the trauma of the whiteout stays. It changes how you look at the winter. It changes how you feel when you hear the wind whistling through the cracks in your door. You realize that your house isn't a fortress. It's a cage. And the locks on your doors are only as good as the glass in your windows. When you're sitting in the dark and you hear that first crunch of a footstep that isn't yours, remember, the blizzard doesn't just bring the cold. It brings the things that thrive in it. Things that can stand on a deck for an hour without moving. Things that can cross a room in a heartbeat. Things that smile while the world freezes around them. But there is one more detail from that night on Interstate 80 that I didn't mention. When the police searched the green sedan, they didn't just find it empty. They found something in the trunk. It was the body of the original owner, the delivery driver from Omaha. He had been dead for 3 days. But the medical examiner's report noted something impossible. Even though he had been in that trunk for 72 hours in sub-zero temperatures, his body wasn't frozen. In fact, when they found him, he was still warm to the touch. As if something had been using him as a battery. As if something had been keeping him alive just to stay warm. So, the next time the sky turns grey and the wind begins to pick up, don't just worry about the pipes freezing. Don't just worry about the power. Look at your sliding glass door. Look at the condensation forming on the pane. And if you see a circle being wiped clear from the outside, don't go to investigate. Don't try to see who is there. Because by the time you see the eye, they've already seen you. And they've been waiting a long, long time for you to notice. The world is much older and much hungrier than we like to admit. We huddle in our lit rooms, pretending the darkness is empty, but the snow knows the truth. The snow covers the tracks of the things that shouldn't exist. It mutes the screams of the people who didn't lock their doors in time. If this story chilled your blood, then you're exactly where you need to be. There are thousands of stories buried under the frost, and I am here to dig them up. Before you go back to your warm bed, before you close your eyes and try to forget the man in the t-shirt or the eye in the window, do me a favor. Share this story with someone you want to keep safe. Let them know what's out there. Like the video to help spread the warning. and subscribe to the channel so you never miss the next descent into the dark. We are building a community here, a community of people who know that the silence is never truly empty. Stay safe. Stay inside. And whatever you do, keep your eyes off the windows. Because tonight, the storm is coming. And you never know who is already standing on your porch, waiting for the lights to go out.